North Korea launched 2 non-ballistic missiles last week, but Biden downplayed them. So North Korea launched 2 more missiles just days after. This time, they were ballistic. How big of a threat is North Korea now? And how will Biden handle it? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Surfshark Alert. It helps detect if your private information has been leaked online or is part of a data breach. So, North Korea has been restraining itself from conducting nuclear and long-range missile tests since 2017. But it has been focusing more on shorter-range missiles. It makes sense. You really want to accomplish your short-range missiles first, before you tackle your long-range missiles. At least, that's what I say in my upcoming self-help book, Awaken the Missile Within. Last Monday, North Korea conducted its first missile test under the Biden administration. They were cruise missiles launched into the Yellow Sea, according to South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff. The timing was no coincidence, since it was just shortly after the U.S. and South Korea conducted a 9-day joint military exercise earlier this month. And it was right after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin toured Tokyo and Seoul to discuss security issues. But U.S. officials downplayed that missile launch as common military testing and said they did not violate UN Security Council resolutions. That's because the launches were on the low end of the spectrum that didn't involve nuclear weapons or intercontinental ballistic missile launches. It's also because the White House did not want to hype them up and give North Korea publicity. President Biden himself downplayed the weapons test by saying nothing much has changed. However, some North Korean experts say it's not business as usual because these missiles could deliver a nuclear payload. You should never let people downplay your missiles. That's chapter 1 of my book. So just to make sure the U.S. was listening, North Korea fired 2 more missiles just days later, on Thursday. This time, they went into the Sea of Japan. And they were ballistic. The missiles, I mean. Though you could say it's routine for the North Korean regime to go ballistic. But first, for you non-military folks out there are 2 basic types of missiles, cruise missiles and ballistic missiles. Cruise missiles are usually launched low and straight. They typically fly around 500 miles per hour, though some of them fly faster. They have a guidance system that helps them hone in on a target. This is good for accuracy, but their slow speed and heavy electronics make them relatively easier for an advanced military to intercept. Ballistic missiles are launched high into the air. They use fuel to go up and then gravity to come back down, traveling as fast as 15,000 miles per hour before they hit their target. Some have a guidance system, others don't. This plus extreme speed make ballistic missiles very hard to intercept. Fortunately for North Korea, they have both kinds of missiles. And North Korea announced last week's ballistic missiles were a newly developed, new type tactical guided projectile with a 2.5-ton warhead. 2.5 tons? That's enough to carry a nuclear bomb. Another feature of North Korea's new ballistic missiles is they use solid fuel. That's big for several reasons. For one, they're hard to intercept.
Such Iskander-class ballistic missiles are harder to intercept than other missiles due to their so-called pull-up maneuver, the ability to shoot upwards dramatically during the final stages of descent, making it harder to predict their flight trajectory.
They're also hard to detect. So this new missile is a big deal. But Kim Jong-un wants you to know he's an even bigger deal. He had other important things to do on launch day, like visit the new passenger buses in Pyongyang. Hey, Kim just wants to make it clear he's the one who drives the bus of the workers' state. So what did North Korea hope to accomplish by doing Thursday's ballistic missile test? I'll get into that after the break. Welcome back. South Korea's National Intelligence Service says the timing of last Thursday's missile test was not a coincidence. The UN's recent resolution against North Korean human rights and the U.S. extradition of a North Korean operative are both possible reasons for why North Korea conducted those missile tests. But perhaps the biggest reason could be that Kim Jong-un is testing Joe Biden. Biden didn't even mention North Korea in his foreign policy address last month. Maybe Kim Jong-un wants to remind him that he's still a threat.
I think the North wanted to test the 2018 understanding between then-President Donald Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un that the two countries work together to build a lasting peace regime on the Korean peninsula. By launching these missiles, Pyongyang wanted to know one delicate point: whether the Biden administration will adhere to the joint statement, or if they have to start building communication with the U.S. from scratch.
But while the Biden administration is rushing to finalize its North Korea policy, Kim Jong-un can play the long game. North Korea is not the one in immediate danger. Besides, North Korea has other things to worry about, like its economy. It's tanking, thanks to a brutal combination of economic sanctions, food shortages, famine, and pandemic-related closures of its border with China. So instead of pursuing hard provocation with nuclear and long-range missile tests, North Korea seems to be pursuing soft provocation with these shorter-range missiles. Soft enough to not cause an international crisis, but large enough to still be a big deal. I cover this in Chapter 3, The Power of Short-Range Thinking.
These missiles are no joke. They can be used to hold South Korea hostage, to strike South Korea, and to be used in battle, all of which affect the United States. So even though these are short-range missiles, we should not ignore them.
So at his press conference on Thursday, President Biden issued a response to the missile tests.
They will be met with fire and fury.
Oops, that was the last guy. Here's Biden.
Let me say that, number one, UN Resolution 1718 was violated by those particular missiles that were tested.
Way to make it boring, Mr. President. So what actions are the U.S. actually taking?
We're consulting with our allies and partners, and there will be responses if they choose to escalate. We will respond accordingly. But I'm also prepared for some form of diplomacy, but it has to be conditioned upon the end result of denuclearization.
So he won't respond to last week's tests. But if North Korea escalates, maybe he will? And he'll also talk with North Korea, but only after they commit to denuclearization. So it's the Obama policy, the one that actually didn't stop North Korea from testing missiles. But maybe it doesn't matter, because in the scope of things the U.S. has to deal with, North Korea is not that high on the radar.
Former President Obama warned the incoming President Trump that North Korea was the top foreign policy issue that he was watching. Is that how you assess the crisis in North Korea?
Yes.
Wait, yes? North Korea is Biden's top foreign policy issue? Or is this just a case of if you ask Biden whether he agrees with Obama, he'll say yes?
Yes.
But whether or not North Korea is the top foreign policy issue, it's still tricky for Biden. I'll explain after the break. Welcome back. The Biden team knows that abandoning the goal of complete denuclearization and accepting North Korea as a nuclear power would likely make South Korea and Japan pursue their own nuclear weapons, thus increasing nuclear proliferation. At the same time, it's a big headache trying to solve this problem in just 1 or 2 presidential terms, especially when the other guy gets to rule for life. So Biden is saying that denuclearization is a goal, but he leaves the timetable completely open. It's kind of like the U.S. national debt. We know it's a problem, but no one wants to fix it now. Hopefully someone will get to it later. But is Biden being too vague? The same reporter who asked Biden if North Korea was the top foreign policy issue also asked Biden what his red line was on North Korea. But he didn't answer that part of her question. It might be because he's still trying to figure it out with his team. As Biden finishes laying out his North Korea policy, the question we need to ask is whether Biden will take the slippery slope that leads to arms control talks with North Korea. If he does, then it might play into North Korea's favor. According to the Brookings Institution, a think tank based in Washington, D.C., North Korea could shift the dialogue away from denuclearization to management and constraints on its arsenal. In other words, North Korea wants the discussion to not be about whether North Korea should have nuclear weapons, but about how many it should possess. Some in the West argue that we should do just that, since it already has the capabilities. But others are worried this would reward North Korea for violating commitments, and the international community should not condone North Korea as a nuclear power. Regardless, we should expect a lot more North Korean news coming up. According to the president of the Azan Institute for Policy Studies in Seoul, the next launch would come around mid-April, when the North celebrates the Day of the Sun to commemorate the birth of Kim Il-sung, the country's founding leader. And according to the senior director of Korean Studies at the Center for the National Interest, in the months ahead, we should expect North Korea to test bigger and more advanced missiles. And we should also expect a fiery response when Biden unveils his North Korea policy. If that happens, will Biden lean towards a stages and phases deal, some denuclearization for some sanctions relief? North Korea hopes so. Will it work? And will it be more effective at reining in the North Korea threat than Trump's policy? Leave your comments below. And this episode is sponsored by Surfshark Alert. Big data breaches happen all the time, like the 2019 Capital One breach that affected 100 million Americans, or the 2017 Equifax hack that exposed data of nearly 150 million Americans. When this happens, your private information can be exposed, like your credit card number, bank account balance, social security number, and more. If you're concerned about data breaches, identity theft, password leaks, or hackers, you should use Surfshark Alert. Surfshark Alert will notify you if your data is compromised. This way you can change your passwords, close exposed accounts, or switch to new companies. And for a limited time, you can save 75%. You can get Surfshark Alert for only $3.19 per month. Plus, get 3 months for free. Plus, get a free subscription to Surfshark VPN. To get this deal, go to surfshark.deals/uncoveredalert and use the code UNCOVEREDALERT. Take control of your online security. Monitor your credit cards. Guard your email passwords. And go to surfshark.deals/uncoveredalert to learn more. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.